At 0847 on February 16, 1943, Machinist Mate Second Class Forrest Sterling heard something through USS Wahoo's hydrophones that made his blood turn to ice. Screaming. Not one voice, not 10 voices, hundreds of voices. Japanese soldiers drowning in burning oil after Commander Dudley Morton had just put 2 torpedoes into their troop transport. The sound came through Sterling's headset like it was happening inside his skull. Men calling for help in a language he did not understand. Men burning alive. Men drowning. Men dying because Morton had decided to attack a convoy in broad daylight at point-blank range. Sterling ripped off his headset. His hands were shaking. He looked across the control room at Morton. Morton stood with his arms crossed, watching the depth gauge, listening to the same screams through the overhead speaker. His face showed nothing. No emotion. No regret. He looked at Sterling and said 3 words: "Reload the tubes." Sterling wanted to vomit. Instead, he turned back to his station and helped reload torpedo tubes 1 and 2. They still had targets to kill. The patrol was not over. Morton was not done. 3 weeks earlier, Sterling had been convinced that Morton was going to get them all killed. Morton had taken command of USS Wahoo in December 1942 at Pearl Harbor. 36 years old. Kentucky farm boy who had graduated from Annapolis in 1930. Before Wahoo, he had been executive officer on USS Dolphin. Nothing about his record suggested he would become anything special. The Navy gave him Wahoo because they needed bodies in command positions. The submarine war was going badly. Most American submarines came back from patrol with 0 kills. Too cautious. Too scared. The Japanese were winning. Wahoo's first war patrol under the previous commander had been a complete failure. 6 weeks at sea. 0 confirmed kills. The crew had lost faith. The Navy relieved that commander and gave the boat to Morton. Morton brought his own executive officer with him, Lieutenant Richard O'Kane, 29 years old. Brilliant tactical mind. O'Kane had actually served on Wahoo during that failed first patrol. He knew exactly what was broken. He and Morton were going to fix it. On January 23, 1943, the day before Wahoo's second patrol, Morton gathered the entire crew in the forward torpedo room. 80 men crammed between the torpedo tubes. They expected the standard speech: stay alert, follow orders, do your duty, come home safe. Morton did not give them that speech. He told them the truth. Our first patrol was a disgrace. We fired torpedoes and missed. We ran from fights we should have won. We accomplished nothing. That ends now. On this patrol, we are going hunting. We are not hiding from the enemy anymore. We are going into their territory, and we are going to sink everything that floats. If you see water, we shoot it. If it moves, we kill it. Some of you think I am crazy. You are probably right. But if you follow my orders, we are going to make the Japanese Navy wish they had never heard the name Wahoo. Sterling raised his hand. He had been on the first patrol. He had to ask, "Commander, what happens when we run into a destroyer?" Everyone knew the answer. You dove deep and you ran. Destroyers carried depth charges. Destroyers were faster than submarines. Fighting a destroyer was suicide. Morton smiled. When we run into a destroyer, we sink it. We are going to fire a torpedo straight down his throat while he charges at us. If we hit, he dies. If we miss, we die. But I do not plan on missing. The crew looked at each other. Some thought Morton was insane. Others thought he was lying. Sterling thought both might be true. But 24 hours later, they were at sea, heading toward the Caroline Islands, and it was too late to get off the boat. For 4 days, they saw nothing. Empty ocean. No targets. Then on February 16th, the lookouts spotted smoke. A convoy. 4 cargo ships. 2 destroyer escorts. Morton ordered battle stations. O'Kane went to the periscope. Morton stayed in the control room where he could command the entire boat. This was different from how other submarine commanders operated. Most commanders wanted to see the target themselves. Morton trusted O'Kane to be his eyes. It made them faster, more efficient, more deadly. O'Kane called out what he saw through the periscope. Morton calculated the firing solution in his head. He did not trust the torpedo data computer. He trusted his instincts. He ordered Wahoo to close to 1,200 yards. Point-blank range. So close that if the torpedoes malfunctioned, the destroyers would be on top of them in minutes. The crew thought he was insane. Attacking in daylight, attacking at close range. This was how submarines got killed. Morton fired 4 torpedoes, 2 at the first cargo ship, 2 at the second. All 4 hit. The first ship exploded with such violence that pieces of the hull flew 300 feet into the air. The second ship broke in half and sank in 90 seconds. The crew cheered. Then Sterling heard the screaming through his hydrophones. Hundreds of men in the water. Burning. Drowning. Dying. Sterling realized those cargo ships had been troop transports. They had just killed hundreds of Japanese soldiers. He looked at Morton. Morton's face was stone. He ordered the reload. They were going after the other 2 ships, but the destroyers were charging now, hunting for the submarine that had just destroyed half their convoy. O'Kane called out a contact. One destroyer turning toward them, bearing 090, range 3,000 yards, coming straight at them at 30 knots. Sterling waited for the order to dive deep and run. The order never came. Morton ordered a down-the-throat shot. He was going to do exactly what he had promised. He was going to shoot a torpedo into the face of a charging destroyer. Through the periscope, O'Kane could see the destroyer growing larger. Bow on. White water breaking over the bow. Gun turrets trained forward. The Japanese captain knew Wahoo was there. He was coming to kill them. Range 2,000 yards, then 1,500, then 1,000. The crew could hear the destroyer's propellers through the hull now, a rhythmic thudding that grew louder with every second. Sterling's heart was hammering. His mouth was dry. Someone behind him was praying. Someone else was crying. The destroyer was at 800 yards, then 600, then 400. Morton had not fired. He was waiting, letting the destroyer get closer, closer. The sound of the propellers was deafening now. Sterling could picture the destroyer above them, could picture the depth charges ready to drop, could picture Wahoo's hull imploding under the pressure of the explosions. 200 yards. Sterling could see the destroyer through the periscope over O'Kane's shoulder. He could see the bow wave, could see Japanese sailors on the deck pointing at the periscope. They knew Wahoo was there. They were seconds away from ramming her or dropping depth charges directly on top of her. If Morton missed this shot, 80 men would die in the next 30 seconds. Morton's voice was calm. Fire 1, fire 2. The torpedoes left the tubes. Everyone held their breath. 18 seconds to impact. 18 seconds to find out if they lived or died. Sterling counted in his head. 17, 16, 15. The destroyer kept coming. 10, 9, 8. Still coming. The bow filled the entire periscope view. 5, 4, 3. Then the world exploded. The destroyer's bow lifted out of the water. The ship folded in half like a piece of cardboard. Men flew off the deck. The destroyer sank in less than a minute. The crew of Wahoo erupted in cheers. Men were screaming, crying, laughing. They had just killed a destroyer in a head-on attack, something no American submarine had ever done. Sterling sat down, hard. His legs would not hold him anymore. His hands were shaking. He had thought they were dead. For 18 seconds he had been absolutely certain they were about to die. And Morton had just stood there calm as Sunday morning and killed the ship that was trying to kill them. For the next 10 days, Wahoo hunted across the Caroline Islands. They sank a tanker. They sank 3 cargo ships. They attacked another convoy and killed 2 more ships in one engagement. Every attack was in daylight. Every attack was at close range. Every attack violated every rule in the submarine warfare manual. And every attack worked. Morton was rewriting how submarine combat was supposed to be fought. He was proving that aggression worked, that American submarines did not have to hide. On March 7th, Wahoo returned to Pearl Harbor flying a Japanese flag from her periscope, a trophy from one of the ships they had sunk. The crew had been at sea for 33 days. They had fired 24 torpedoes. They had sunk 9 ships, 20,000 tons of enemy shipping sent to the bottom. It was the most successful American submarine patrol in the Pacific War. Admiral Charles Lockwood met them at the dock. He promoted Morton to full commander on the spot. He told every submarine commander at Pearl Harbor to study Morton's patrol report. This is how you win a war. Be aggressive. Be deadly. Be like Wahoo. The crew got 2 weeks of shore leave. They drank. They told stories. They called Morton the Mushroom because his attacks created mushroom clouds when ships exploded. They loved him. But late at night, when the bars closed, Sterling sat on the dock and stared at Wahoo and wondered how long their luck would hold. He asked Morton that question on the last night before their 3rd patrol. Morton was smoking a cigarette, staring at the submarine. Sterling said, "Commander, are we pushing our luck too far?" Morton did not answer for a long time. Then he said, "Sterling, luck has nothing to do with it. We are better than them. Faster, smarter, more aggressive. We keep killing them until the war ends or we are dead. Those are the only 2 ways this ends." Sterling nodded. He did not ask which outcome Morton thought was more likely. He was afraid he already knew. On March 23, 1943, USS Wahoo was heading toward Wewak Harbor on the northern coast of New Guinea. Morton stood in the conning tower studying a map that every other submarine commander in the Pacific had looked at and decided was suicide. Wewak was a Japanese naval base, protected harbor, destroyers, patrol boats, shore batteries, minefields, the kind of place submarines were supposed to avoid. Morton was going to sail straight into it in broad daylight and sink everything he could find. Lieutenant O'Kane looked at the map and then looked at Morton. "Commander, this is insane. There is one way in and one way out. If they spot us before we attack, we are trapped." Morton nodded. "That is why we are going in on the surface, fast. They will think we are one of their submarines returning to port. By the time they realize we are American, we will already be firing." The crew heard the plan, and some of them started writing letters home. Forrest Sterling was one of them. He sat in the forward torpedo room with a pencil and paper, trying to figure out what to tell his mother. He could not tell her the truth, could not tell her that their commander was about to sail into a Japanese naval base like he was buying groceries, could not tell her that every man on Wahoo knew this might be a one-way trip. So he wrote about the weather, about the food, about how much he missed Texas. He did not mail the letter. He folded it and put it in his locker next to the last letter he had written, the one from 2 weeks ago that he also had not mailed. At 6:30 on March 24th, Wahoo surfaced 3 miles from the entrance to Wewak Harbor. Morton ordered full speed ahead. The submarine raced toward the harbor entrance at 17 knots. On the conning tower, lookouts scanned for patrol boats. O'Kane stood next to Morton with binoculars. They could see the harbor now. 6 ships at anchor, cargo ships, tankers, a destroyer tied to the dock. It was a target-rich environment. It was also a death trap. Wahoo crossed into the harbor at 7:10. No alarm. No patrol boats racing to intercept them. The Japanese had not realized an American submarine was inside their base. Morton ordered battle stations. The crew moved to their positions in silence. Sterling loaded torpedo tube 1. His hands were steady now. After the second patrol, after hearing those men screaming in the water, Something had changed. He had stopped being afraid of dying, or maybe he had just accepted that dying was part of the job. Either way, his hands did not shake anymore. O'Kane called out targets. Morton calculated firing solutions. At 0723, Wahoo fired her first torpedo at a cargo ship anchored 400 yards away. The torpedo ran straight and true. It hit the cargo ship amidships. The explosion tore the ship in half. Both halves sank in under 3 minutes. Now the Japanese knew Wahoo was there. The destroyer at the dock started her engines. Patrol boats began moving. Shore batteries opened fire. Shells started landing in the water around Wahoo. Morton did not dive. He turned toward the next target, a tanker, 8,000 tons, loaded with fuel for Japanese aircraft. Morton fired 2 torpedoes. Both hit. The tanker exploded with such force that the blast wave rocked Wahoo. A fireball rose 300 feet into the air. Burning fuel spread across the harbor. The water itself was on fire. Stirling could feel the heat from the explosion even inside the submarine. He could smell burning oil. He wondered if the men on that tanker had time to scream before they died. He did not want to know. The destroyer was moving now, heading straight for Wahoo. Morton ordered a turn to port. He was lining up for a down-the-throat shot, again. O'Kane protested. "Commander, we are trapped in a harbor. If we miss, we have nowhere to run." Morton ignored him. He waited until the destroyer was 600 yards away, then 400, then 200. He fired 2 torpedoes. One missed. The other hit the destroyer in the bow. The warship slowed, but did not sink. Her guns were still firing. Shells were hitting the water close enough that spray was washing over Wahoo's deck. Morton ordered a crash dive. Wahoo dropped beneath the surface just as a shell screamed overhead and exploded on the far side of the harbor. The submarine went to 200 feet. The crew waited for depth charges. They came 30 seconds later. 6 explosions. Close enough that the lights flickered. Close enough that Stirling felt the concussions in his chest. The depth charges kept coming. 12, 20, 30. The Japanese were dropping everything they had. Wahoo's hull groaned under the pressure. Bolts popped loose. Water began spraying from a cracked pipe in the control room. A sailor grabbed a wrench and tried to tighten it. The pipe burst. Water gushed into the compartment. 2 more sailors helped seal it with a patch and a clamp. Morton ordered silent running. No movement. No unnecessary noise. The crew froze in place. Stirling stood next to the torpedo tubes and listened to the destroyers overhead. Their propellers made a distinctive sound, a rhythmic whump 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 that grew louder as they passed directly above Wahoo. He could hear the Japanese crews shouting to each other, could hear equipment moving on the deck, could hear the splashes as they dropped more depth charges. The charges exploded. Farther away this time. The Japanese were guessing. They had lost contact. Wahoo stayed silent, stayed deep, stayed still. For 3 hours, the Japanese hunted. Wahoo did not move. The crew stood at their stations, breathing recycled air that tasted like oil and sweat and fear. Some men prayed. Some men cried silently. Stirling just stood there thinking about his mother, about Texas, about whether his body would ever be found, or if he would just disappear into the Pacific Ocean, like so many other submariners who never came home. At 1100 hours, the sounds overhead stopped. The destroyers had given up. Morton waited another 30 minutes to be sure. Then he ordered Wahoo to periscope depth. O'Kane swept the harbor. 2 destroyers were still searching, but they were on the far side. The entrance to the harbor was clear. Morton ordered full speed. Wahoo raced for the exit. They cleared the harbor at 11:47 and dove deep. They had been inside Wewak for 5 hours. They had sunk 3 ships. They had survived something that should have killed them. On the 3rd patrol in May 1943, Morton did something even more insane. He spotted a Japanese destroyer hunting for him, and instead of running, he surfaced, in broad daylight, in calm seas, where the destroyer could see him. O'Kane thought Morton had finally snapped. The destroyer turned and charged at 30 knots. Morton waited until the destroyer was 1,000 yards away. Then he fired 4 torpedoes and dove. All 4 missed. The destroyer raced over Wahoo's position and dropped 18 depth charges. One exploded close enough to crack a porthole in the forward torpedo room. Seawater poured in. The crew sealed it with a mattress and steel clamps. Morton surfaced again an hour later, found the same destroyer, and sank it with 2 torpedoes. When they returned to Pearl Harbor, Admiral Lockwood asked Morton why he had surfaced in front of a destroyer. Morton said, "I wanted him to know we were not afraid." Lockwood did not know whether to promote him or court-martial him. He promoted him. On the 4th Patrol in July 1943, Wahoo attacked a convoy in the Yellow Sea. Morton sank 4 cargo ships in one engagement, but one of those ships was carrying 7,000 Japanese soldiers. The ship went down in 4 minutes. Most of the soldiers were below decks when the torpedoes hit. They never had a chance to get topside. Stirling listened to them drown through his hydrophones. Thousands of men screaming, pounding on steel bulkheads that would not open. The sound lasted for 6 minutes, then silence. That night, Stirling could not sleep. He lay in his bunk staring at the steel hull above him, thinking about those 7,000 men, thinking about how many of them had families, how many had been drafted, how many did not want to be soldiers. He knew they were the enemy. He knew that if positions were reversed, they would have killed him without hesitation. But knowing that did not make the screaming stop in his head. The 5th Patrol, in August 1943, was different. Wahoo hunted for 2 weeks and found nothing. Empty ocean. Then on August 28th, they spotted a single cargo ship, unescorted, defenseless. Morton fired 1 torpedo. The ship sank. As it went down, Stirling saw something through the periscope. Lifeboats, survivors in the water. He saw women. He saw children. The cargo ship had been an evacuation transport, civilians fleeing a war zone. Morton ordered Wahoo to dive and leave. He did not surface to rescue survivors. He did not radio their position to Japanese rescue ships. He just left them there, floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, 300 miles from land. Stirling asked him why they did not help. Morton's face was stone. He said, "We are not lifeguards. We are killers. That is the job." Stirling never asked again. By September 1943, Wahoo had completed 5 war patrols. 19 confirmed ships sunk. Over 50,000 tons of enemy shipping sent to the bottom. Morton was a legend. Admiral Lockwood gave him a Navy Cross. He gave the entire crew a Presidential Unit citation. He asked Morton what he wanted for his next patrol. Morton had an answer ready. He wanted to go where no American submarine had ever returned from alive. He wanted to go into the Sea of Japan. Lockwood stared at him. The Sea of Japan was surrounded by Japanese home islands, 4 narrow straits, all heavily mined, all patrolled constantly. It was a death sentence. Morton said he understood the risks. He said Wahoo could do it. Lockwood approved the mission. On September 9th, 1943, USS Wahoo departed Midway Island, heading north. Stirling stood on deck as they cleared the harbor. He looked back at the island. He thought about the letters in his locker that he had never mailed. He thought about his mother in Texas, about whether she would ever know what happened to him. He thought about the 7,000 soldiers he had listened to drown, about the women and children they had left floating in the Pacific, about Morton saying, "We are killers. That is the job." Stirling wondered if this was karma, if the ocean was finally coming to collect what they owed. USS Wahoo crossed into the Sea of Japan through Perouse Strait on September 13th, 1943. 12 miles wide, mined both sides, patrol boats circling, aircraft every 30 minutes, Morton had navigation and timing. He was counting on luck. Lieutenant O'Kane watched Hokkaido pass through the periscope. Enemy home waters, 1,500 miles from the nearest American forces. No rescue if detected. Forrest Sterling loaded Torpedo Tube 1. 5 patrols, 19 ships sunk. The motions were muscle memory, but this time felt different. No way out except back through that strait. The Japanese would be waiting. Morton called the crew together that first night. 80 men listening. Hunt for 2 weeks. Attack everything. Leave through La Perouse when torpedoes were gone. Someone asked what happened if the Japanese sealed the strait. Morton said, "Then we find another way out. Or, we do not get out. But we kill everything first." Nobody asked more questions. 3 days hunting. Nothing. On September 17th, lookouts spotted smoke. A convoy. Morton ordered battle stations. At 0847, he fired 4 torpedoes. 3 ships burning. The destroyers came. Wahoo dove. 6 depth charges. Not close. The Japanese gave up. Over 2 weeks, Morton attacked everything. September 20th, 2 freighters off Korea. September 23rd, a tanker and cargo ship. September 29th, 3 ships from a 5-ship convoy. By October 5th, 15 ships sunk inside the Sea of Japan. 15 ships the Japanese thought were safe. But each attack tightened the net. Japanese headquarters knew an American submarine was inside. They dispatched destroyers, increased air patrols, stationed patrol boats at both straits. By October 5th, 4 torpedoes remained. Morton told the senior men it was time to leave. On October 10th, Wahoo approached La Perouse after dark. At 2100, Morton ordered submerged transit, 12 miles underwater, 4 hours silent running. At 2300, sonar reported patrol boats anchored across the strait. Gaps between them, maybe 500 yards. Morton made his decision. Go through the gap, slowly, quietly. Absolute silence. Wahoo entered the gap at 2,345. Sterling could hear the patrol boats through the hull, their engines idling, less than 300 yards away. 1 on each side. 4 minutes to cross. 80 men holding perfectly still. Electric motors humming, hull creaking. Someone's stomach growled. The sound seemed impossibly loud. Sterling closed his eyes and thought about Texas. At 2,349, Wahoo cleared the gap. 8 miles to the Pacific. At 0230, sonar reported a new contact, moving toward them. Morton ordered a course change, but the contact turned to follow. O'Kane saw the searchlight through the periscope. The Japanese ship was hunting. Morton ordered Wahoo deeper, 200 feet. Sonar reported ocean floor at 220 feet. Morton leveled at 210, 10 feet between keel and bottom. Trapped between surface and sea floor with a Japanese warship overhead. The ship passed over them. Propellers loud. Sterling felt the vibrations. The ship circled, its sonar pinging. Active sonar, trying to find them. Morton ordered complete silence. Some men held their breath. The pinging stopped. Propeller sounds faded. The ship moved away. Morton had hidden them in the acoustic shadow of the seafloor. At 0600 on October 11th, Wahoo cleared La Perouse Strait, Pacific Ocean. They had escaped. Some men were crying, others laughing. Sterling sat down. 6 patrols, 15 ships, 0 casualties. Morton had done it again. Wahoo surfaced at 1,250 miles from the strait. Morton ordered course for Midway, 6 days away. The crew began to relax. They were going home. At 1430, lookouts spotted smoke. Morton ordered battle stations. O'Kane counted ships, a convoy, 4 merchants, 2 destroyer escorts, moving north toward La Perouse. O'Kane said, "Commander, we should let them pass. We are out of the Sea of Japan. Our mission is complete. We need to get home. Morton stared at the convoy. Calculating. 4 torpedoes, 4 targets. O'Kane repeated himself. Commander, we should let them pass. Morton looked at Sterling, standing in the control room hatch. Sterling saw something in Morton's eyes, something cold, something that could not stop killing. Morton gave the order. Come left to course 030. Increase speed to 15 knots. We are going to hit that convoy. O'Kane started to protest. Morton cut him off. Those are enemy ships heading to hunt American submarines. We are going to stop them. Sterling felt something cold settle in his stomach. They had escaped. They had survived. They were 90 miles from safety, and Morton was turning back toward the enemy. At 16:15, Morton fired tubes 1 and 2. Sterling watched the stopwatch. 30 seconds. At 0, nothing. Both missed. Morton fired tubes 3 and 4, the last torpedoes. At 12 seconds, Sterling heard something. A torpedo. Getting louder. Coming back. He screamed. Torpedo in the water. Circular run. It's coming back. Circular run. Gyroscope failed. The torpedo was turning in a circle, coming back toward Wahoo. Still armed. 680 pounds of Torpex. Enough to crack the pressure hull. Morton had 8 seconds. O'Kane shouted, Emergency surface. Morton gave the order. Emergency blow. Surface. All back full. Wahoo's bow erupted from the water at 45 degrees. Compressed air screamed. The submarine breached like a whale. The torpedo passed 6 feet under the keel. Sterling felt the pressure wave. 6 feet. They should be dead. But the destroyers had seen Wahoo's surface. They were turning. Morton ordered crash dive. Too late. The destroyers were closing. Then Sterling heard aircraft engines. Japanese patrol aircraft. They had seen Wahoo. Morton ordered deep. 300 feet. 350. At 350, the first depth charge exploded. Lights went out. Hull groaned. A pipe burst. More depth charges. The destroyers were overhead. Morton ordered 400 feet, approaching crush depth. The steel groaned. Rivets popped. More pipes burst. Water coming in faster than the crew could patch. At 420 feet, the depth charges stopped. Morton ordered absolute silence. Sterling stood breathing shallow, his ears ringing. The torpedo missed by 6 feet. If Morton had not turned back to attack, they would be safe, heading home. But Morton could not stop. For 2 hours, Wahoo stayed at 420 feet. Engineering reported water rising, 4 feet in the bilges. Water approaching battery wells. 30 minutes until chlorine gas. Morton waited. The destroyers will give up eventually. At 1900, destroyer sounds faded. The Japanese were leaving. Morton waited 30 more minutes, then ordered periscope depth. O'Kane swept the horizon. Empty. Morton ordered surface. Damage report. 2 cracked hull plates, 7 burst pipes, hairline crack in forward torpedo room. Wahoo needed a shipyard. What she had was 80 exhausted men with wrenches and patches. The crew worked through the night. By 0400 on October 12th, Wahoo was seaworthy. Barely. Morton plotted course for Midway. 5 days at reduced speed. For 3 days, Wahoo limped southeast. The crack kept weeping, but held. They would make it. On October 16th, USS Wahoo entered Midway Lagoon. Admiral Lockwood was waiting. The entire base turned out. Bands playing. Sailors cheering. Wahoo had completed the most successful submarine patrol of the war. 15 ships sunk inside enemy home waters. The crew were heroes. Morton was a legend. Sterling stepped onto the pier. Solid ground for the first time in 7 weeks. He was alive. Against all odds, he was alive. For now. USS Wahoo departed Pearl Harbor on September 9, 1943. 7th War Patrol. Destination: Sea of Japan. Morton had orders to transit Perouse Strait, hunt inside Japanese home waters, return the same way. 24 torpedoes loaded, 80 men aboard, one submarine going where American submarines didn't go. Lieutenant O'Kane wasn't with them. After the 6th Patrol, Admiral Lockwood had promoted him, gave him his own command. USS Tang. O'Kane had requested the transfer. 6 patrols under Morton was enough. He'd learned everything Morton could teach him. Time to apply those lessons on his own boat. Time to get out before Morton's luck ran out. Sterling noticed O'Kane didn't say goodbye to anyone. Just packed his gear and left. Like he knew something. Like he'd seen the same thing Sterling saw in Morton's eyes after the circular run. The thing that couldn't stop killing. The thing that would eventually kill them all. Forrest Sterling stood in the forward torpedo room, loading tubes. 7th Patrol. 29 ships sunk. 0 casualties. Morton's record was perfect. But Sterling couldn't shake the feeling from the 6th Patrol. The circular run torpedo. The 420 feet at crush depth. Morton turning back to attack that convoy when they should have been running for home. Something had changed in Morton. Something cold. Wahoo crossed into the Sea of Japan on October 2nd, 1943. Perouse Strait. Same route as before. The Japanese were waiting this time. Patrol boats thick across the strait. Aircraft overhead every 15 minutes. Morton threaded through at night. Submerged. Silent. 3 hours underwater. They made it through. For 9 days, Wahoo hunted inside the Sea of Japan. Radio traffic indicated Morton was attacking everything. October 5th, a convoy off the western coast. October 6th, 2 merchants near Tsushima Strait. October 9th, another convoy. Japanese destroyers responding faster now. Depth charges getting closer. The net was tightening. On October 11th, Wahoo radioed Pearl Harbor. Final transmission. Morton reported successful attacks. 4 ships sunk. Torpedoes expended. Departing Sea of Japan via Perouse Strait. Estimated arrival Midway October 21st. The message was routine. Standard patrol report. Nobody at Pearl Harbor suspected anything was wrong. Wahoo never arrived at Midway. October 21st came and went. No submarine. No radio contact. Admiral Lockwood waited 3 days. Protocol for overdue submarines. Maybe Wahoo had mechanical problems. Maybe her radio was damaged. Maybe Morton was taking the long route home. By October 25th, Lockwood knew. USS Wahoo was presumed lost with all hands. 80 men, gone. The most successful submarine commander in the Pacific, dead. Nobody knew what happened. No distress call. No survivors. No wreckage. Wahoo had simply disappeared inside the Sea of Japan. The Navy declared her lost November 9th, 1943. Cause unknown. Location unknown. The families received telegrams. Regret to inform. Missing and presumed dead. Morton's wife. Sterling's mother in Texas. 78 other families. All told the same thing. Your son died, serving his country. No body to bury. No grave to visit. Just missing. Japanese records captured after the war told the story. October 11th, 1943. Japanese aircraft spotted a submarine surfacing in Perouse Strait. Wahoo. She was leaving the Sea of Japan, heading home. The aircraft attacked, dropped 3 depth charges, direct hits. The submarine went down stern first, sank in 200 feet of water. No survivors. Morton had made it through Perouse on the way in, had sunk ships for 9 days inside Japanese home waters, had radioed his final report, was 20 miles from safety when the aircraft found him, 20 miles from deep water where he could have dived, 20 miles from escape. The irony was brutal. Wahoo's 6th patrol had been her most successful. 15 ships sunk inside the Sea of Japan. 0 casualties. Morton had brought them home against impossible odds. The 7th Patrol should have been the same. 4 ships sunk. Mission accomplished. But this time, the Japanese were ready. This time, the patrol boats were thicker. This time, the aircraft caught him surfaced. Forrest Sterling died at his torpedo station. Lieutenant George Grider died in the control room. Chief Motor Machinist Mate Dalton Keeter died in the engine room. 80 men total. The entire crew of USS Wahoo, lost in the Perouse Strait on October 11th, 1943. The Japanese didn't know what submarine they'd killed. Their records listed it as unknown American submarine. Type unknown. Name unknown. Not until after the war did anyone connect the dots, match the location, match the date, match Wahoo's last transmission to the Japanese attack report. Morton had taken calculated risks for 6 patrols, had pushed Wahoo to the absolute limit, had brought his crew home every time. The 7th Patrol was one risk too many, one mission too far. The ocean finally collected what it was owed. Sterling had known, had felt it during the 6th Patrol, had seen something in Morton's eyes. Something that couldn't stop killing, something that would eventually kill them all. He'd been right. He just didn't live long enough to say it. USS Wahoo remains at the bottom of the Perouse Strait, 200 feet down, 80 men still at their stations, the most successful submarine in the Pacific, the deadliest American boat of the war, 29 enemy ships destroyed, 0 survivors. Morton's record stands unbroken. O'Kane survived the war, commanded USS Tang, sank 33 ships, received the Medal of Honor, lived to be 83 years old. He never forgot the 6 patrols under Morton, never forgot the crew of Wahoo, never forgot that he'd gotten out just in time. Tell us where you're watching from. Every view from every country keeps these 80 sailors' memory alive. Whether you're in New York or Tokyo, London or Moscow, Berlin or Sydney, or anywhere in between. Drop your location in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. And tell us, what hit you hardest? Morton turning back when they should have run. O'Kane leaving just in time. Sterling's premonition coming true. The 20 miles from safety? Your comment helps the YouTube algorithm show this to more people. You're literally helping preserve history.